It's Labor Day weekend, and that means one thing is recruiting season is finally here. For some of us, it's fantasy football. For some of you others, it's college football. But for those real hoop junkies, which you probably are because you're watching this, it means it's recruiting season, and it is upon us. We have official visits, unofficial visits. We have kids traveling all over the country to see college campuses, get them up close and personal with the schools that have been watching them since the springtime, the summertime, offering scholarships. And now here we are, Josh Tech. We're in the thick of it. And the next couple of weeks, really the next couple of months for that matter, we're going to get into it every Fastbreak Friday. I know today's Thursday. We're trying to get ahead of it, but that's when the visits kind of get started. I love this time of year. If you're a junkie, if you're a recruit, Nick, this is Christmas time, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is as good as it gets for people in our industry. I mean, it's just a fun time to see who's going where, what's happening where, how this can affect everything else. Like it's just a fantastic time for people like me to nerd out.
It is. It's the best time to nerd out. It's absolutely the best time to nerd out. This week's show, we're going to talk about a number of things. I think every time we do this show, we're going to do Campus of the Weekend, highlighting some of the best campuses there are in the country as far as who has the most amount of talent coming to town, or notable guys, five-star guys, things like that. Maybe visitors that really could change the concept of the program, the trajectory of a program. We're going to talk about commitment watch, keep an eye on some guys that could potentially make a decision while on these visits. We're going to talk about really some of the top notable guys if there's different themes. So we're going to keep it pretty fresh every single week, me and Josh, right here on hoopscene.com. If you're watching on Twitter, hit the repost button, retweet button, whatever. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the bell, do all the things that tell you to do for the algorithm. Josh, I'll throw it right to you. If there's one campus, if you're a recruiting junkie, that you need to pay attention to this weekend, who is it, where is it, and why is it?
It's in Lawrence, Kansas. It's the Kansas Jayhawks. It's Bill Self. Why is it? It's because they got one of the best available big men, Derek Queen, going to campus. They've got two top 100 shooting guards, Jalil Bethea, Jared Harris, coming to campus. I think that's the place to be. They might even have more people, who knows? But so far, they have two top 100 guys, or three top 100 guys that we know of. And boy, oh boy, is it a great time to be a Jayhawk. The momentum is right in your favor right now.
I mean, Derek Queen, listen, Floyd Madunga, it is a bit surprising that Derek Queen, in a way, is still taking a visit there. I mean, I guess if you're paying close attention, it's not. But, they're trying to corner the market on big men there in the class of 2024. If anybody can do it, it certainly is Bill Self. But how important is Derek Queen, not just for KU, but for the entirety of the class of 2024? Like, how big of a weight does he carry as far as the ripple effect is concerned for the rest of the class?
I would say it's pretty hefty. I think, according to what we have, he's probably the best available true center, right?
Yeah.
I guess you could consider, maybe somebody might consider Cooper Flagg like a forward. He is a forward, but they might consider him a big forward, but Cooper Flagg's more skilled. He can kind of be a bit of a combo. But Derek Queen is a true, back to the basket, plays inside the paint forward / center. So I think it's pretty big. If Kansas can lock up Floyd Madunga, who is our number one big, and then Derek Queen, who's our number two big, that's crazy. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely running the table for sure. As we see so many programs now, so guard dominated, it is an opportunity for you to create separation with bigs. And we know Kansas has done such a great job with big men over the
if there's a program that could hoard talented forwards, it's Kansas for sure. A lot of teams don't do two big lineups. They're moving away from that. But if there's anybody that can do it, it's probably Bill Self or a Big Ten school.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I really like Jalil Bethea going there as well. Certainly somebody to keep your eyes on. Jared Harris, Texas players have always done well at Kansas, and they've recruited that state so well as well, especially too with so many teams in Texas leaving the Big 12 and moving on to different play. SEC has picked up a lot, Texas and Texas A&M. So it'll be interesting to see too with players from Texas, if they want to stay in the Big 12 area, does Kansas start to kind of reap the benefit of that as well? Another campus I'm keeping my eye on too is Indiana, which I think is good for basketball. We've seen certainly the Hoosiers kind of been on this roller coaster ride, if you will, with recruiting as their coaching changes and as they're trying to really kind of get IU back to what IU is. This is a big one. I think Jalan Harrison, one of the really top prospects overall in all of high school basketball, is taking a visit there. The in-state guy, 2025, is going to be in Bloomington as Ohio State comes to town for football. monster game in Big Ten football to open things up. Certainly one of the games that I've got on the DVR that I'll be watching from afar. Not that I think IU football is like a big deal, but it's a big deal that when the number 3 overall team in the country comes to campus is a big deal, especially for your college atmosphere. Also, Malachi Moreno, another top 50 player in the class of 2025, one of the top big men in the class of 2025, is also going to be on campus. And of course, listen, there are going to be a lot of other guys on campuses as we talk about Kansas, IU. These are the premier guys that are going to be on campus.
An extra here, Derek Queen also has a visit to IU coming up at some point down the line. I guess that's if he doesn't just get wowed by Kansas and commit on the spot. But he has another visit scheduled to IU. So
I could see him taking some time to do that. I know IU certainly has their heels in there and has done a really good job there with Derek Queen.
Obviously Maryland.
No doubt. Obviously, you got to keep really pay close attention to Maryland with Under Armour ties there. Of course, he's a Baltimore native as well. Let's talk about the Carolina kids. Some big visitors for the class of 2024 out of the state of North Carolina. Justin Byerly and I have talked about this for a long time. This is one of the deepest classes that we've seen out of the state of North Carolina. Tons of high major talent. We've already seen a number of guys already pop. Austin Swartz was on the visit trail last weekend. He's going to be on it again this weekend, headed down to Athens to check out the Georgia Bulldogs. He's somebody to keep an eye on. Bishop Boswell is making the in-state trip down to Wake Forest to visit Steve Forbes and his program. And then, of course, we'll round things out with Jaeden Mustaf going up to Maryland, where his dad was on the Maryland team, played for Gary Williams back in the day. And really it's weird to think that I've been doing this so long that Mustaf part 2 is going to go visit the school that his dad. I can't believe that we're at that time of existence that's happening. So that's certainly interesting and something to pay close attention to. I'll throw it to you, Josh. From the Peach State, there's a handful of visitors that you're kind of keeping your eyes on coming up. Let's start with let's just start with Gicarri Harris, a guy that you really like a lot. He's headed down to Miami, and it seems like we've known Gicarri as a guy that's really, really good. But when Miami comes in there and recruits you and identifies you, do you feel a little justified in you being like the captain of the fan club of just how good of a player he is when Miami comes involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I think his recruitment for a while, Gicarri Harris's recruitment seemed like it was going to be Purdue or Stanford. And now a bunch of other schools are starting to get involved in the mix. Like you said, Miami being one of them, Georgia Tech last weekend being another one, LSU also being another one that he's going to be visiting at some point down the line. So yeah, it is a little bit, I guess, a nice justification to see a guy that we've been watching for what seems like forever kind of blossom into the prospect that we always kind of had the hopes that he could be.
Yeah, for sure. Another guy that we like and another guy that kind of fits into that category that you're talking about, if he finds the program that allows him to go be the best version of himself, is Micah Smith. He took a visit last week to Bradley. This week he's headed up to James Madison. Mark Byington and his staff has done a really good job of really kind of turning things around up there up in Virginia after a really good stint at Georgia Southern. Micah Smith, how important is it for you? Like, obviously, I think he could be recruited, and he will be recruited at the high major level. He's taking some visits there later on the back end of his visit tour. But for you, when you look at his skill set, where do you feel like he could he have more value to go to a place like James Madison or Bradley, like a mid-major or non-power 5 is what I should say, type of school? Or is he a guy that could, kind of wait a little bit, take his time, and really become an upperclassman, productive guy at a high major school?
I'd say so let me phrase it like this. In the old days, I would say that he could be a guy that blossoms into the high major player.
Sure.
Right. But the way our whole world exists right now is I almost feel like it's better to get in where you fit in, where you can make an impact right away. And I think Micah Smith is a player that's talented enough to go to a James Madison or a Bradley or a Mercer and just be like a really impact player right away. He can be, get all the reps. He can play against high major talent and get all of the kind of, college experience that he needs to. And then he can use it as a springboard to transfer to a high major program when he's ready, when he is that, upperclassman or whatever. So I think that question nowadays is kind of changed. Like, I think going to that mid-major is almost like sitting in, waiting your time at a high major, but you're just playing right away. You're getting that season and you're getting that experience. So in a way, I kind of think this
I thought about Jonai Broom that went to Morehead State, a guy that I freaking loved. And I actually thought he was like a high major guy coming out, was dominant right away at Morehead State and obviously transferred up I went to the SEC and had a lot of success there.
Yeah, I mean, same exact thing. Like, I think you and I both agree after seeing Micah Smith enough, and especially after seeing that Bob Gibbons, that this guy's no-brainer high major talent, right? Like, he's got the upside to be a high major player, impactful high major player. But I do think that there is something to be said for going to that lower level and really kind of.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Staying in the state of Georgia, I've always been interested by this. So if you know the city of Atlanta, if you know Midtown particularly, where on the west side of the downtown connector, you've got Georgia Tech. Okay, you've got their campus. You can see their arena, the Thriller Dome right there off of downtown. If you sat in traffic ever in downtown Atlanta, if you're headed north, it's off to the left-hand side, okay? Now, just right up the road, maybe not even a half mile, you've got OTE. You've got their arena up in Atlantic Station. And I don't know if that we've seen this yet, but a couple of things that are interesting, just talking about just culturally. In Atlanta for years, Georgia Tech was the place where so many guys that were home in the summer, pro guys or just guys that were traveling through, Georgia Tech had the best run in the city by far. Back in the day, it was run and shoot down on the south side of town. Then it became Georgia Tech, and forever now I'm seeing OTE is becoming the place where so many guys are getting run in. I see so many videos over at OTE. It's an unbelievable facility. Makes a ton of sense. Yeah. However, on the recruiting side, we haven't seen this connectivity between Georgia Tech and OTE because of their proximity to each other. We haven't seen that yet until this weekend as far as recruiting is concerned. Darrion Sutton, a kid that's out of O'Fallon, like St. Louis area, Illinois, Missouri, is at OTE, is going to take a visit over to Georgia Tech this weekend. I think that's significant. I think that's something that we need to pay close attention to. I think David Stoudemire and his staff are really smart. I mean, literally, it's like being on campus. OTE is.
It's like it's straight up a stone's throw away. Like, I mean, if it's not scorching hot, you could walk from one to the other. Honestly,
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's right there. So I think that's important to watch. I could see that happening more often as more OTE guys, I think, are going to college rather than like exploring the pro option, at least the way they're building their roster. So I think that's important to pay close attention to.
If Georgia Tech can get that thing done, Darrion Sutton is a guy that can really. I feel like, I don't know if late bloomer is the right term, but maybe something in that neighborhood. He's a little bit of a late bloomer. And I think that he's a guy that can keep getting better when he gets into that college atmosphere. So if Georgia Tech can get that done, they might be getting a steal here.
I think that's the type of player that Georgia Tech has to go get.
Yeah, he's
in order for them to return that back to
it. Yep. He could turn that thing into the actual Thriller Dome, not the place where I've been getting like $1 tickets to go sit courtside.
Hey man, I'm not trying to throw any stones over at Georgia Tech.
Hey, I'm the one that's going there. You know.
I think, excuse me. I think this is important to pay close attention to. We're recording this on Wednesday night, so we haven't seen the remnants of the hurricane and how that's impacting Florida and guys from the state of Florida and their visits. But Jordan Tillery is a player that's visiting Georgia Southern, and I know like that's kind of in that whole trajectory of the hurricane. So that's on the calendar. That's a really significant player for Georgia Southern to get onto campus. I wouldn't be surprised to see that more often. Obviously, Georgia Southern's had a lot of great players from the state of Florida go there and play there with their coaching staff. That they've had multiple coaching staffs, but most Spates being there. More importantly, I think we'll see that happen way more moving forward. But Jordan Tillery,
Jordan Tillery, yeah.
But yeah, and a really important prospect for Georgia Southern. So I want to get that on the watch. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit on our notes, but there's a player from Georgia that's taking a visit that could. I think we need to put him on our commitment watch. I think we need to watch really closely to Josh Hill from Wheeler. You've seen Wheeler probably more times than you've seen your own family over the last. I think, 20
that
months.
Is actually, honest to God, probably the truth. Like that. Like it sounds like a joke, but dead serious. That might be true.
I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but if Josh Hill were to commit to Xavier, how happy would you be, or should you be, if you're a Xavier fan?
I think you should be pretty happy. I mean, look. The fact of the matter is that Marquette had Shaka Smart and an assistant there watching him in June, and Marquette right now is a program that's pretty white hot. So if you're going up against Marquette and you can get that locked up before he gets to the Golden Eagles, an in-conference rival or an in-conference foe, that's a pretty significant deal. I think Josh Hill has still so much untapped potential that I think could be unleashed when he gets to the college or to the college level. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's just so long. He is so long. He's so big. That's the first thing that stands out. When you watch him guard out to the perimeter, you are just like enamored by his length. Like he has the physical intangibles that you look for in a college player for sure.
When college coaches ask me about him, I say honestly, like 2 or 3 years from now, if he's shaking hands with somebody on a stage on draft night, it wouldn't shock me. Like he's got that type of upside. Now he's got to find the right place and a place that can allow him to develop to become that guy. I don't think he's that guy now, but I think that's the upside there and that's the potential. I'm not saying that him going to Xavier for a visit is going to solidify it, but I think if we are looking for somebody that could potentially make a decision in the next 5 to 7 days, Josh Hill is a guy that you want to pay pretty close attention to.
Absolutely.
Let's go through some of our other notables this weekend. Asen Newell not taking a visit at all to a college campus, but yet he's also one of our most important visitors. Explain that a little bit if you can, Josh.
Yeah, reports are that Asen Newell is going to be taking a visit to G League Ignite. And that still sounds weird, right? It sounds weird to say, like, to put it in the same way that we're putting Josh Hill taking a visit to Xavier, Asen Newell taking a visit to G League Ignite. That just sounds like, I don't know. It just, like, I know it's like, that's a very viable route. Yeah. So I'm not discrediting anything like that. It just, because of the new pro routes and the new options that are available, like for us that are stuck in the traditional ways, it still sounds kind of weird. But yeah, that's one to really keep an eye on. I mean, anybody that takes a visit to G League Ignite is, on commitment watch, because that program has shown that they are a very viable option for players to get drafted, right? I mean, both years they've been in existence for 2 years, right? Something like that. And they've had
a lot of that, but yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I was thinking of maybe OTE or something like that. But regardless, G League Ignite has shown they can get guys drafted in the lottery.
Yeah. And Asen Newell is one of those guys too that I think certainly warrants that type of level. And we've seen G League Ignite out there actively recruiting guys on the recruiting drill, just like college coaches have as well. Let's keep going down the line here of notable guys. We've got Jace Richardson on the visit trail to Alabama. I really like this one a lot. Listen, Alabama is taking full advantage. The one thing I like, when Nate Oates was hired, let me kind of walk it back a little bit. Came from Buffalo, and if you talk to Nate Oates, does not sound like a guy that has any connections to the South at all, right? Like definitely a Midwestern guy, and came up through the high school ranks. Certainly a cool, we've known that the guy can flat out coach, tremendous. Yeah, I know a lot of pro coaches that really respect him and his staff and what they do. Really, really smart guy. And so with that, they've done a pretty good job of taking full advantage of, like, you know what? I get it. We're at Alabama. We've traditionally always recruited the SEC, but let's recruit the country. And that's what they're doing. Jace Richardson, a guy that, played at Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas, now down at Columbus, down in South Florida. They're going to get him on campus this weekend for a visit, which makes total sense. What totally falls in line with the way the Crimson Tide have been recruiting as well.
Can you think of two better places to play high school ball than Vegas and Miami? Like, damn, that's a nice little 2 stops.
I think it's safe to say he's not going to go to a cold weather school, right? I think that's a good tell right there. That's a really good tell. Let's stay in Alabama, actually. Alabama native Chase McCarty, who's down at IMG, also in Florida, is taking a visit to Houston. And, man, Houston is recruited. You talk about Marquette being white hot on the recruiting trail. Houston, I think they identify the right guys every single time. Chase McCarty makes a lot of sense for him being a type of attractive player that they want to go after and recruit. Curtis Givens to Texas is an interesting one. What do you think about that one?
I like it. Curtis Givens is one of those guys where I kind of don't exactly know where he's going to end up. Like, I don't really I think he has 3 visits currently slated, one of them being Texas, one of them being Memphis, and I'm forgetting where the other one is. But I remember looking at it the other day, kind of looking at our big chart. We have a big chart, and I was looking through it being like, I think that guy might go there. That guy might go there. We should watch out for this guy on this weekend. Curtis Givens, I cut the 3 that he had in a pie chart, and they were all pretty even. I was like, all right, I could see him going there. I could see him going there. I could also see him going there. So Texas and Curtis Givens makes sense. He's from the area, I believe. I know he's at Montverde now, but I believe I don't remember where he's from originally, but I thought he might be from that area. But that is one to watch. I mean, Rodney Terry and then company are recruiting wizards, it looks like. And I think that they need like a true kind of point guard, true more combo guard to play alongside Cam Scott. I think Curtis Givens could be a perfect option for them.
Yeah, I think he's leveled up his game tremendously in the last 12 months, really, really coming together. Thought he had a really good travel season. Here's a visitor that I'm watching really closely too, and that's Jeremiah Johnson, who played last year at Wasatch Academy. Now he's down at PHH Prep here in Phoenix. He's going to take a visit to Oklahoma State. He's an Oklahoma native. Certainly fits the bill for the type of guy that's had success for Mike Boynton. I really like Jeremiah Johnson a lot. Played really well with Live on EYBL circuit. Big guard, big combo guard, can do a lot of good stuff, and a player that his style of game has played very well for Mike Boynton since he's been there as the head coach in Stillwater. I think I'll wrap it up here with Trent Burns at Missouri, and I think this one's interesting too. So when Dennis Gates and Charlton Young, sorry, I thought I screwed their names up. We're at Florida State. Florida State, they always had more than one 7-footer on their roster, always. And they would take a flyer on a guy, kind of like what Matt Painter does at Purdue, right? Like if there's a guy that's a big, they're going to take a really long look at him. Now at Missouri, they've got Peyton Marshall already on board. They've got Marcus Allen on board. So they're doing really well already in their front court. But now they're bringing in 7'3" Trent Burns from the Houston area for an official visit. This one's really interesting because we saw those guys do that when they were at Florida State. And Leonard Hamilton's really done a great job in his career of having guys like that on his roster. It looks like that same sort of ideology is replicating itself there in Columbia with the Tigers. So that's an interesting one considering who they already have committed. Trent Burns, man, really, really enticing guy. Either you see the long-term potential for who he is, or you just think this could be a really good project guy to keep an eye on and kind of watch and see where he goes. And again, remember, John Butler played for Florida State and knows those guys. Like this type of player has always been connected to Gates and Young, and whether they've been at Florida State or even Cleveland State and now here at Missouri. So certainly something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, they've always had monsters on their
always. Yeah, always. Tons of stuff coming up. Make sure you keep us following on Twitter throughout the weekend. And, of course, just make sure you check out hoopsing.com for Fastbreak Friday, the full column as we kind of run down some stuff. Garrett Tucker's got his visitor of the weekend. Justin Byerly's got his visitor of the weekend. I've got mine. Josh has his. So go by and check it out. Or if you're seeing it right now in the story, just read it and do all the things. Hit the button that says like, subscribe, the bell, all the things they tell you to go do. Go do that. But, Josh, I think our Fastbreak Friday is going to get even longer and a little bit more detailed week in and week out as we move through this.
As the Saturdays progress and they start to turn into fall and the games start to get bigger on campuses, oh boy, I think late September, October, we're going to be having long versions of these.
I think so too. I think we'll also have a lot of commitment catch-ups to do as well as these guys make these visits. So this was good. Josh, I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.